High nostril piercings, and that's not high nostril piercings. It's high nostril piercings, as high on the nose or high on the nostril. We're going to talk about those today and let you know everything you should possibly need to know before getting them done on Consultations by a Piercer, episode number 21. Hello and welcome to the Body Piercing and Tattooing channel. If you're new here, you might not know who I am. My name is DaVo. I'm a professional body piercer and have been since 1994. I own and operate the Axiom Body Piercing Studio located right here inside Skin Kitchen Tattoo in the fabulous city of Des Moines, Iowa. So we're going to talk about the high nostril piercing today. High nostril piercings are done basically just below the thicker cartilage. If you feel around in there, you'll notice it thickens and then it thins. This can make a very interesting set of piercings. They're usually higher on the nose and they're usually done in sets. We're going to get into matching piercings here, or nostrils and etc. here and in the near future too. So the average healing time on these can be, really to be honest with you, I would like to say 12 weeks or more. They are a little more difficult to heal than, say, a normal nostril piercing. Most people end up doing them in pairs, so that just complicates things even more. So they tend to be a little bit more difficult to heal. So 12 to maybe 3 to 5 months, maybe 6 months. It varies from person to person. Now, during that time, I'm gonna suggest that you clean it twice a day using a sterile saline. This does need to come out of a can. It needs to be sterile. Personally, I like Nailmed's Piercing Aftercare. The reason why I like it the out of all the products on the market is it comes out in a fine mist. So it's a lot less work. You just spray it directly on there and you're done. Now, you can get other comparable saline. Usually, pretty much any good drugstore is going to have it, or pharmacy, I think they call it in the Europes. I don't know. Anyway, the main thing you want to look for is that it's sterile. It's in a pressurized can. When you turn it over on the back, it says sodium chloride, aka salt, and water, usually purified water. Nothing else. No herbs, spices, flavors of the month, nothing else. There should be hops in there or anything else. The biggest difference between the two is, like I said, with the fine mist, you just spray directly on there. With the stuff that comes out of a can, kind of like a squirt gun, I don't advise spraying it directly on that healing piercing. It might be very effective at doing what we want it to do, but it's not going to be very comfortable. So a good idea is to just do a cold compress. Take a sterile piece of gauze sponge or a clean folded up paper towel. Just spray the spray on there until it's damp, and then apply it to the area. Let it sit on there for about 5 minutes or so to remove the discharge is what we're trying to do. The other thing I suggest doing is at the end of your shower, just kind of pull everything out of the way and let that water just gently flow over the piercing area. What we're doing with these two things is we're removing the discharge. Your body will produce what's called lymph discharge. It'll harden, collect, and deposit on the jewelry. That's a normal part of the healing process. We want to remove it because sometimes when the jewelry shifts, it can get into the piercing and agitates it. So if you're having issues removing that, if that isn't enough, you're not getting enough, it's not dissolving enough, or there seems like there's a heavy buildup of it, I really advise going to see your piercer and having them clean it and take a look at it and make sure there's not something else going on. The one thing I don't advise you to do is go out and find every tool imaginable or stick or thing with cotton on it and try to clean it. All that stuff is just going to agitate it, possibly contaminate it, and cause other issues. Now let's talk about the don'ts, the things you don't want to do. Number one with that one would be cause the cross-contaminating. In other words, cross-contamination prevention. Wash your hands before handling the area and minimize the amount of contact you have. No oral contact or exchanging of bodily fluids on you around that piercing until it's healed. Keep your environment clean. Clothing, bedding, towels, pillowcases, anything that may come in contact with the area needs to be cleaned on a regular basis. That includes glasses, eyewear, or goggles, blindfolds, whatever you use needs to be cleaned regularly if it's going to have contact with the piercing or the piercing area. Do not submerge piercing in bodies of water you cannot control the quality of, which is pretty much everything but your own clean and well-maintained bathtub. That means no swimming. I don't advise it for any reason. I don't care how clean your pool is. I don't care if you only use imported water from a special spring or some nonsense. The reality is that water has microorganisms in it. And every time you submerge the piercing in that water, you're risking one of those going into the open wound and causing an infection. Keep pets away from it. Don't let them sleep in the bed with you, especially smaller animals like to sleep up by your face and still your breath while you're sleeping. Avoid contact with unclean objects, and that's pretty much anything that isn't clean. I don't know exactly what you're touching your nose with, but do keep that in mind. I guess the biggest thing would be any type of safety glasses, masks, anything that comes in contact or covers the area. You should make sure it's cleaned on a regular basis, sunglasses, etc. Trauma, pressure, and abuse. Do not sleep on the piercings. Make sure you're sleeping on your back or on the other side if you only did one. If you did both, lie on your back like a vampire. You can try to figure out some way to elevate it off the bed, but the reality is that you kind of have to train yourself to do that. It's best to sleep maybe slightly elevated so you can't turn over on your side. Do not spin, do not rotate, do not move the jewelry. There is absolutely no reason for that. One thing I forgot about with the cross-contamination mentioned, it's one of those things where it's not really trauma, it's not really cross-contamination, but it's something you need to avoid. Cosmetics, especially foundation or powder-based makeups, you want to keep that away from the piercing until it is completely healed. It can work its way to the piercing and cause issues, including laryngeal cysts, which are very painful and hard to get rid of and usually require medical attention. And if you use any type of facial cleanser that has tingles when you apply it, it probably has something in it that is going to agitate the piercing. So keep that away from it. Also, anything that's gritty, and has beads in it, that stuff, keep it away from the piercing until it's healed. Now let's talk a little bit about jewelry. I don't advise piercing this with anything other than a flat back labret or labret piece of jewelry. Threadless is best and easiest to deal with. You can put threaded in there. It just makes it a little bit more complicated, and you have to check the balls on a regular basis to make sure those ends do not come unscrewed. On this one, it's a good idea to downsize in 4 to 6 weeks to a shorter post. The nostril cavity kind of narrows a little bit towards the top. If you're doing both sides, you're going to notice one is more narrow than the other one. That's the other thing. Having that longer post in there is just going to cause it to move more and agitate the piercing possibly. The other problem is it's pressing against and kind of blocking the flow there. They can be kind of annoying and uncomfortable for those two reasons. I think it would be safe to assume, I shouldn't have to mention this, but this should never be pierced with rings. It isn't going to work. It would have to be a giant ring to work. So no rings. Pain. This one's a little bit more usually than a regular nostril piercing. So I would say closer to 3 to possibly on the high end a 6. Afterwards, you're going to notice a little bit of throbbing and aching, maybe some discomfort. Lasts anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes. The other thing is your eyes are going to water in most cases. Anything that has to do with the sinuses, the nostril, or this general area on the top side of the face will cause your eyes to water. It's just part of the process, part of the experience. Usually you'll see a little bit of bleeding, not usually a lot. These don't bleed profusely unless you nick a blood vessel, which is not normally what happens. It really depends on what method they use, who did it, and what type of jewelry they put in there. You're going to see a lot more bleeding probably with nostril screws and L-bends, and I don't advise piercing with them because that bar on the inside takes up a lot more room. Anatomy. I mentioned this in the nostril piercing video. If you have a nose, this could probably be done. However, where it's placed and how it's placed is dictated by where that thicker cartilage that's at the top of your nose ends. It has to kind of be below that. It can't be right next to it. It can be right on the edge. It needs to be below it roughly about 1/8 of an inch or so. So anatomy-wise, that's pretty much what dictates it. We generally try to make them look centered. Matching can be a little bit more complicated, and I'll cover a little bit more about that when I do one of these on matching nostril piercings. And to finish it out, what you should consider. If you're involved in any type of sporting activity, any type of organized hobby, event, dance, you have a job with a dress code, I would advise not getting this piercing until you're done with it. Most of these organizations anymore have dress codes and will require you to remove the jewelry to actually be involved with them. It doesn't really matter what your coach thinks. In some cases, it comes down to what the official rules are for that organization that governs whatever activity you're doing. So even after the piercing is healed, it is going to be a hassle to constantly take this out and put it back in so you're allowed to participate. It's not an easy piercing to change often. So it might be a good idea to just wait till you're done with that activity, then get them pierced or get it pierced. The next thing is if you wear glasses or you wear sunglasses a lot, you work somewhere and like you're a welder and you have to wear goggles. Or I guess that'd be a whole face thing. But if there's a reason why, or maybe you work in a wood or a machine shop, then yes, you would wear goggles and safety glasses. If you do wear that sort of thing, definitely bring them to the appointment. Where it hits and where it's supported on the nose really can be affected if the placement isn't going to match. Do bring that stuff in and make your piercer aware of it during the consultation. Next one, if you're going on vacation or traveling for business, I advise waiting until after the piercing is healed or after you're done with the vacation. The problem with vacations or traveling is you have no control over the environment that you're going to end up sleeping in. It basically just goes up to the standards of whatever place you're staying at and who they hire to do that. The other issue is most people want to swim when they're on vacation, and this is kind of a double jeopardy situation because since it's an environment that you're normally not in, and maybe it's the first time you've ever been in that environment, that part of the world, there might be some foreign pathogens, microorganisms that you have never encountered before and thus have no immunity towards or built up immunity. So getting in the water, having one of them enter into the piercing could put you at a higher risk for having a really nasty infection. So wait till after the vacation and you don't have to deal with all these things, then get it pierced. And I don't know how to stress this enough. With this one, definitely do not sleep on them. Sleep on your side of your back. That pressure not only tends to agitate the piercing, but it also tends to put a lot of pressure and cause that jewelry to slide up against the inside of your nose, and it can be very uncomfortable and cause problems. This piercing, you just can't sleep on it. Isolate it, leave it alone. You'll have it for the rest of your life. Don't play with it. Don't pick at it. None of that stuff. Well, that's all I have to say about that. Until next time, here's hoping all your piercings heal with ease and without a single issue. And if you're in the Des Moines, Iowa area, I hope to see you for your body piercing needs in the future. Check out this other consultation video. We'll see you in the next one.